Today we're doing something very special for Token 2049 in Singapore, the largest Web3 event in Asia. Every year, pioneers and opinion leaders gather together to share their view on the global crypto ecosystem. This is the community that will define what's next in the space, and we are fortunate enough to have the opportunity to interview leaders from top projects attending to explore their thoughts on the role Web3 will play in enabling climate action. Thank you, Max, for taking out time to join us today at Panelists. Can you share a little bit more about your background, your story, and how did it lead you to speak at Token 2049?
I grew up between United States and China, so a lot of my life has always been thinking about ways that these two very different places can actually work together and create positive, change. And I think climate change is one of the few things that actually the world together needs a lot of collaboration on. When I was in undergrad, I focused a lot on machine learning, computer science, and biology. So a mix of appreciation of life and also designing technology systems that help make people's lives better. And then I did a master's actually in Tsinghua as part of the Schwarzman Scholars Program, focused actually on global politics and international relations around climate change. And finally, when I moved to Asia and sort of moved out of Hong Kong and started working, I spent some time in investments and finance and actually understanding how does money move around the world. And the catalytic event for me personally actually was attending the UN Climate Change Conference back in 2019. And I remember being very worried about how little time we have left until we actually irreversibly, set the world on a global warming stage. And so from 2020 January to now, I've been on this personal journey of trying to use my experiences in technology, in blockchain, in economics, to sort of make people care about and participate more in the climate change solution set.
The long story short of it is, I'm pretty much a tree hugger. Corporate-wise, I've been in different capacities, like in legal and then in commodities and stuff. But I think what sort of led me into the space or refi space or carbon credit space is essentially that I came out from two previous projects. One which was a sustainability project as well, about origination for ethical ingredients and organic ingredients in skincare. And then subsequently, right before Carbon5, which actually was the inspiration behind Carbon5, it was a plastic recycling project. The main driving force for what is behind Carbon5 is that for small to medium-sized projects, which are essential to scaling climate change fight, it's impossible almost to get them financing. There are a lot of reasons why, of course, but what we want to target is essentially the transparency trail and origination trail to actually attract liquidity and financing into the space. When I think about what Carbon5 stands for, we stand for those projects. We want to democratize access for them in sort of a marketplace function, match them to potentially the demand side, which also has difficulty accessing the more oligopolistic or monopolistic marketplaces for carbon credits.
My background is primarily in the climate change space. So I've been studying climate change, over 10 years ago, then moved into academics, then moved into consulting, then policy making, all in climate change and energy tech. Moved into crypto, as in actually working on crypto, not just degenning on crypto, probably in 2019 or so. And then 2021, I came across some of the other KlimaDAO founders who had also been working on this kind of crypto climate intersection, should we say. So yeah, working on the strategy piece of KlimaDAO at the moment, thinking about how we go from disruptor, the market's looking at us, trying to understand what it is that we're doing, to actually something that can scale out and really kind of have a big impact on the carbon markets as well as the crypto markets.
What is Carbonbase doing to ensure the work we are doing is effective against climate change?
Sure, so we're one of the earliest, I would say, carbon calculation technology companies in Asia. So we've been able to help a lot of conglomerates, real estate companies, shipping companies, consumer good companies calculate their carbon footprints so that we can actually allow them to take effective climate action. We also have built personal carbon calculators so individuals can also do the same thing, actually understand what their personal carbon footprint is. Now this is the beginning, this is the first part of our journey. Second part actually is we started thinking more about how do we use NFTs as a medium for good, and we launched the NFT Alliance, which is currently the largest alliance of impact NFTs in the world, and we tried to create an example of where NFTs can be used effectively. Our long-term mission at Carbonbase actually is to establish an Asia-based blockchain carbon registry. I think having a registry, which is kind of the central authority of issuance of carbon credits, be based in Asia, actually helps a lot of companies, countries, and individuals here feel like they can actually more easily participate.
Recently we had this invitation from Vera for the public comments on its approach to the third-party crypto instruments and tokens. We are very, very curious on the implementation of variable carbon units, which is a VCUs, and what are our thoughts on that?
This has been a huge event for everyone, not just Klima, but everyone in the crypto carbon space. We're developing a consultation response based on our knowledge of what's happening in the markets and where we think the markets can and should go with the support of Vera. So of course we're going to advocate for the fact that tokenization is important and that we will work with Vera and other organizations, right? It's not just Vera, it's Gold Standard, ACR, etc. And we'll work with them to help them understand the market, to find the best solutions for the market. Ideally starting with the kind of MVP tokenization approach, which Toucan and others have already sort of trialed, but acknowledge that there are other approaches that could be used in the future. So there's this two-way bridge idea, which has been spoken about a lot. So in our consultation response, we'll be talking a little bit about that. And yeah, look forward to how Vera interpret that and what they come back with.
We have been having all these talks about shifting from off-chain to on-chain carbon credits itself. So the question I actually ask is, what's the issue with the current emission trading system versus of them managing our climate policy?
First of all, I just want to say that having a carbon registry exist at all is actually an incredible phenomenon, because there's a lot of things that people do that are actually good for the world, but are unable to receive any economic benefit from that. So having the registry actually allows people to participate and value the sort of action they're doing. There are challenges and limitations to the way that these existing registries work. One of them is that it's really suited for large-scale projects. So if you have a big industrial base and a big sort of project undertaking, plus you also have the financial means actually to sort of register a project, then this system works for you today. But if you are smaller, especially in emerging markets where you don't have a lot of funding and you still want to do something positive, you actually are priced out of the ability to participate. So this actually has been one of the major, I think, challenges that we see right now. We hope that actually having a data-driven registry that uses a lot of digital tools natively will actually drive down the cost of per project registration, so that more people under the long tail of kind of participation can actually also make their own contribution to climate. The second thing is, I think the existing registries don't easily fit into the digital consumer world we live in today. One of the most exciting trends for me actually is the metaverse. Being able to embed our carbon registry with the exciting verticals like GameFi, of DeFi, and also of the NFT IP situation, this actually makes it much more relevant. So carbon, instead of becoming an afterthought, being something like people sort of worry about once in a year, actually being something that people can think about on a daily basis.
What are your thoughts surrounding the narrative that NFTs and blockchain in general is bad for the environment?
Funny story, obviously I'm not a tech person. When we started this project, it was never about being crypto, it was never being about NFTs. In fact, when we first got our pre-seed funding with our incubator Antler, NFTs had just started to take off in Asia. So it was more of a logical process that led us to the technology. Yes, there is a lot of misunderstanding about blockchain, about crypto, about NFTs, but I think that now that there are more people entering the space, there is a lot more effort being made to understand the differences, and I think this will only increase with time, so I think that will fade off. While we're not fundraising, we do meet impact investors who are like, yeah, we don't think this is the solution because there's it's like blockchain, it consumes so much energy. I'm like, that's fair, I'm not trying to convince everybody, but you cannot deny the fact that in this day and age, that need for trust and the need for transparency is super high. So technology like blockchain and Web3 fit perfectly into that narrative. So eventually, I think all the FUD around NFTs and stuff will clear up, but only also if people working on those projects are actually building something real, building something with utility and able to explain the utility that they're building. I think a lot of it is just about coordination and communication.
If no one understands carbon offsets, and legacy markets only use it for greenwashing, which is a very, very, very big FUD in the space itself, right? Why should we trust it? Or in other words, why should there be demand?
Demand for carbon credits comes because of the changing conversation around climate change, right? The majority of people understand that we have to do something. Even the UK is starting to be impacted by it. So consumers, businesses, the whole of society is starting to realize, okay, we've got to do something now. And I think the carbon markets are probably one of the most high integrity ways of investing in the climate. Sure, you can plant trees, sure, you can turn your washing machine down by 10 degrees, but actually the supply of carbon credits within the market do have a lot of assurances attached to them in terms of the benefits that they can bring to the climate. So it's not perfect, and KlimaDAO, I would say, has inherited some of the shortcomings of the carbon market. But as there's more attention on the market, as there's more innovation in the market, the supply side of the market will continue to improve. And we've got to remember the carbon markets are 20 years old, right?
Yep.
Compared with most markets, that's very young. And so I think our colleague Marcus uses the phrase, don't let perfect be the enemy of good, or something along those lines. And I'd echo that. We're going in the right direction, I would say.
What are the exciting opportunities that you see regards to like tokenized voluntary carbon market as well as the regenerative finance in general?
One thing is, of course, we are creating a technology that will make things transparent, and with that transparency comes efficiency. Your carbon credit market is becoming sort of a capital market. It will become much more efficient and liquid, which is only great news for financing for the climate change fight. In recent news, I think Patagonia came out really publicly about donating what was left of the fortune to a trust. So essentially it's a foundation. The tagline is that Earth is your only stakeholder, and I think that's what Web3 and DAOs will essentially create. It's a stakeholdership for people who are invested in the planet, and those are the people who will change things. And I think that's what I'm actually really excited about. Having volunteered in this space for over 12 years and seeing the change in the narrative about this conversations about how tech can play a part in this has been the most inspiring thing, I think. Yeah.
This is a question that's slightly off topic. Crypto is actually a very male-dominated space. And so it's really amazing to hear all the things you have done with Carbonbase and you being a female founder itself. So maybe we would like to explore a little bit on your experience of being a female founder in the Web3 space, and how has the experience been like so far?
It is definitely very male-dominated, but to be fair, I also came from two previous industries which were male-dominated, so it didn't make too much of a difference. Although it is, sometimes I wish that I didn't see the same patterns of behavior in the industry as I did with my two previous industries, but I also grew up with all boys, so that helps. It is a little bit challenging. I think also it requires a little bit of a different way of working than I would say a male founder would. I think I've been very privileged to be a female founder in a time where there's a lot of support in place, everyone's very collaborative, and actually that echoes a lot of the culture in Web3. So this is what made what I'm doing a little bit easier, is that there are people who are generally more contributive, more collaborative, more open to ideas. So yeah, I think that's mainly my main perspective as a female founder. I
would love to hear your thoughts about sustainable NFTs, because I understand that you recently had a conversation on Twitter Spaces about this Vivian Tam's NFT fashion show.
Yeah, so we've been very lucky actually to work with Vivian Tam over the last few months to create a metaverse fashion show, and we launched it in New York Fashion Week about 2 weeks ago. And the reception has been really positive, right? First of all, Vivian's an amazing, legendary designer. So the fact that she's actually taking a big step into this space to us is also an incredible honor, right? We sort of see her as being a thought leader of her own right. Second is she also has a very broad base of supporters, especially kind of powerful female executives and world leaders. So her people who like her designs actually can see the relevance of NFTs more in their lives than they were before. It's kind of a female representation in this NFT space. But the final thing is really around sustainability. So there's, to me, two parts of sustainability for NFTs. One of them is, are the NFTs themselves sustainable? Which means that every NFT that we make, either on proof of work or proof of stake, we need to account for this carbon footprint and actually make sure that the NFT itself is carbon neutral. But the other part is actually having NFT represent a much more exciting part of ownership beyond just the physical, right? Because I think a lot of things we buy outside of our base consumption needs are around luxury. And what I mean by luxury is it's really means of self-expression, right? Yeah. You don't need to have 50 pairs of t-shirts. You don't need really just 5 to be able to live. But the other 45 represents your symbols, represents personality you want to express. So I think the digital realm of this actually is a much more low carbon way to continue having your expression of personality without having to make all this cotton and absorb all this water and actually have all these kind of farmland. And I think this idea of actually replacing or slowly migrating parts of our sort of expendable consumption into the digital world is going to dramatically reduce the total carbon footprint per person. And that's actually going to be a big sustainability transition. In the past 1 year, what's that one takeaway you had, building strategies for KlimaDAO? So that's the first part. The second part would be, what would you like to see on our second anniversary?
Sure, great question. What we've done well, what KlimaDAO has done well, has been that it's had a clear proposition and it's acted quickly to make it happen, right? There was this idea when KlimaDAO launched about building loads of liquidity for tokenized carbon credits, and we established that extremely quickly. And we did that because we knew what we needed to do and we did it. We didn't wait around too much. And I think that very, very aggressive approach to building, to developing, to driving forwards has served us pretty well. So I hope that we keep that as we move forwards. We keep building, we keep going at a fast and fair pace. In terms of next year, I mean, I think it's all about adoption, right? We've got this technology, the technology works, we're starting to see people use it. In a year's time, we want everyone to understand the impact of our technology and also the accessibility of our technology.
You know, like Token 2049, it's a yearly event. So what do you hope to see the refi space next year when you attend again?
Yeah, so one goal I have really is to have our registry be up and running by this time next year. So hopefully we'll be talking about not the concept of the registry, but actually the sort of success, failure, and challenges of the registry itself. We're very lucky to put together the first climate panel of Token 2049. I think in the future, hopefully this expands to become like a whole vertical, right? There's more companies and individuals working on the climate space inside this bigger crypto ecosystem, so that more entrepreneurs feel energized and excited to work on this.